Hello there, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are Meadowmere Larp, LLC. We are a local LARPing group in the Springfield area, and we're here to talk to you guys today about what is LARPing and what that means and what that looks like, and kind of delve into the entire concept of role play and live action aspects of role play. So, just one moment. If you guys, my co-host, could you guys introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, Matt, you want to go first?
I'm Matt, aka Tanis, in our Meadowmere Larp group. I don't know what else you want from me.
Matt, tell us, how long have you been LARPing, and tell us a little bit about your character.
I've been LARPing for about 2.5 years, and I play a ranger / fighter, and my focus is on combat, not really magic, but more sword play. I'm trying to delve deeper into more diplomacy and things of that nature to try to round myself out. But yeah, my focus is more combat oriented.
All right, great. I see Kay has joined us. Kay, we are introducing ourselves. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us how long you've been LARPing, and also a little bit about one of your characters.
She's muted.
I got it.
Yeah.
My name is Kay Gates, and I've been LARPing for about 6 years. We've played with a couple different systems. Some characters I've played a cook. I've played, a fairy. I've played lots of, different characters. Not much for fighting, but, lots of interactions, so.
Cool.
Hello, my name is April Payne. I've been LARPing for about 4 or 5 years. I have, the entire time, I have played a female dwarf, and typically she does have a very luxurious, glorious beard. And I love roleplay, but I also love fighting, and I used to be really bad at it, and throughout the years I've become really good at it too.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Marcus. Some of you have heard my name be thrown around because I also work with Visioncon, but I am one of the GMs here with Meadowmere Larp. I've actually only been LARPing for a little more than a year now, but I'm an avid role player, love tabletop role play, have tried to do some DMing myself for those, and jumped right in, and my love of craft and everything like that comes very well in handy when it comes to LARPing.
One of us.
But I play a character called Kalen Inkwell, and he is a changeling mage, and we'll play a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about some of that stuff, but for myself, I like the social aspects. I love being able to interact in character and being able to work with other people's characters and try to figure out what's going on in the plot and drive those choices that the characters make.
And then I guess that would leave me. I'm your main host for the day. My name is Ryan. I've been playing LARPs for about a decade now, and I've been running them for about half that time. Close to half that time, yeah. The big thing that I love about this is I love storytelling. I love fantasy storytelling and genre storytelling, sci-fi and post-apocalyptica, and anything of those really out there creative genres. I love writing stories and participating in stories of those types of systems and games. I also like to fight. It's fun to swing a foam sword at a person. It's really cathartic from time to time. But that's enough about us. We need to get into what is a LARP, because I'm sure some of you guys are asking that. So you people reviewing this. All right, we have LARP is an acronym for live action role play. With the big part of distinguishing LARP from things like tabletop games such as D&D, Vampire the Masquerade, Rift World, Savage World, all that sort of thing, is the live action part. See, being fascinated with these types of either games or other pieces of fiction, such as like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, or anything like that, and going out and wanting to portray characters either that would fit those settings, or sometimes occasionally portraying characters from those settings. Now, when you're discussing what is a LARP and what isn't a LARP, you can ruffle a few sorts of feathers, because the live action role play, taking that very literally, is very inclusive. There's the most common thing that anybody viewing this may have experience with LARP would potentially be a murder mystery dinner. They are very literally standing around, playing different roles that you're assigned, trying to figure out, who got done in, or who is a murderer in a specific scenario. You could include things also, and if you want to really ruffle some feathers, reenactment and SCA, very much like portraying historical roles in a live action setting. There's people like to say, well, we're a lot more intense because we have these strict costuming guidelines, and we have these strict ways of portraying characters, and everything's very much based in history. But at the same time, you're just telling a story. You're dressing up in costume, going out into a place where people aren't, you typically, and telling a story. It's live action, it's role play. There are the common types of things where people think of when they think of LARPs is two distinct ones. There's what is typically referred to as offer fighters, or just a fighting game, or there's also what we do, our group, is a narrative game, narrative driven. So effectively, our game is there to tell a story. Through that story, there can be physical conflict, there can be social conflict, there can be economic conflict. There's typically, in narrative games, a continuous through line of story that the hosts write for each game and that the players participate in. This is opposed to something like a pauper fighter, which is amped guard, dagger here, which is let's go out, dress up in costumes, and beat the crap out of each other. And that's why we're there. And what you want to get out of a game is dependent. What you get out of those things is all variable. If you want to explore characterization, if you want to do creative, some sort of creative writing exercises, typically a narrative game is more for you. The history is more interesting than reenactment. If you're just there to do some talking and some playing, most non-combat games can fulfill that. And then, yeah, if you just want to go out and wail on each other with in a safe and protected manner, boss fighters are there for people. And within each of those things is a different genre. You can break those down into steampunk. You can post-apocalyptic. High fantasy is a very popular one for narrative games and for pauper games. You can do a modern or a Victorian. And sci-fi, I've seen sci-fi done. I've also seen superheroes done. That one's weird. that one took some. I'm not sure if I had my head around that, but there is a big superhero game out there, and it's something. But getting the theming of what you're going to see. If you want some horror, then you're probably going to go for a post-apocalyptic game. You know, getting those flavors, if depending on what genres you typically like, you might find a genre within one of the little subcategories of different LARPs. So effectively, all of these things are very structured, make-believe, improv theater, acting, writing, all those things. It's a community storytelling. Even the Bopper Fighters is a storytelling. Even, a lot of times it's through the story is of a very physical nature, but there are still epic moments and heroic, breaking through a line and I've been in a 150 versus 150 game, so 300 people on the field, and when you bust through a line and take 10 people out before they even realize that you're behind the lines, it's really something to brag about, and it really tells a fun story that you can sit around at the end of the evening and share with people.
So Ryan,
I'm going to switch it back over.
Well, just to kind of reiterate that you're saying, for a lot of people that are not used to LARP, you can think of epic movie scenes where you have two sides that are fighting each other, and that breaking through of the line. Granted, we don't have the great camera close-ups that the movies have, or the special effects, but we have a lot of fun with it, and you get those emotional connections to those actions and to the fighting and to the deceiving and all that stuff that comes with it.
Yep. The biggest thing to note about pretty much every LARP that has been operating for a while is the difference between those things would be the LARPs tend to really focus on making sure that nobody is in the spotlight for too long. Everybody gets a bit of the spotlight, but there are games where there's 100, 200, 500, 1,000, 3,000 people, and you want the biggest draw of those is contributing to the narrative. So, but yeah, everybody wants to get a little turn of that little spotlight where they feel like they're in an epic scene or an epic movie. But the big challenge of being a writer and being a player is learning how to distribute that spotlight amongst everyone. So, real quick, I'm going to switch it over back to everybody else. So, my co-hosts, what do you guys gain from LARP? Why do you LARP? Why do you go out? What do you hope to achieve at the end of a game each time?
I've gained a better understanding of a social interaction group that have like-minded imaginations, a creative bunch of people that can get together and work toward a common goal. They have a common idea, a common ground that you can stand on. We're a very diverse group of people, and we all bring something special to the table. And you're not cast out because you have different ideas. You're actually encouraged to expound on those ideas, and everybody wants to hear about it, and you want to hear about everybody else's because everybody brings something special, and their individual characters are so full of just intricate details that it makes you want to bring out more of yourself. And just the backgrounds and the buildings, just everything. It's phenomenal. It makes you really think about yourself as a person. Even like, I don't want to hold myself back. I want to bring more to the table because we all help each other shine. Really, that's what it is. It's like every little bit of everybody else's stories. Really, it builds a world that you can immerse yourself in, and it's beautiful.
Okay. What do you hope to accomplish at the end of each game, or what do you go to learn to hopefully do? What do you get out of it?
Well, along the lines of what Matt said, I've said for a long time that this is one of the most creative group of people that I know. We're always looking for finding that item that you see in the store and then turning it into something completely different. You get to kind of see the world in a different way. And you also get to look at kind of aspects of yourself. It's kind of fun to play out like a part of yourself that you may or may not like, and then kind of like play it out to more of an extreme, or, you know, play some what if scenarios and have a safe place to know that there's going to be camaraderie at the end, but it's okay to go around and, destroy the entire tavern if that's what you want to do. But play out some of those consequences, in a safe manner. It's a lot of fun. And I will also say just the friendship and the camaraderie and just getting to spend a lot of time with people who are, have a similar set of, interests.
Jeff and April?
You go first, Jeff.
So for me, when you join into a LARP, you can leave everything in the world at the door. You can step into this world, whether it's fantasy, steampunk, sci-fi, whatever it is, you can just envelop yourself in that world and leave everything else behind. It's nice to be able to take things like politics, religion, work, stresses at home, things like that, and just kind of set them aside for a while and live in that fantasy realm. It's nice to be able, like Kay said, to explore those aspects of yourself that you don't get to explore otherwise. It's fun to just kind of start something new and to do something different than what you do in your day-to-day life.
I enjoy LARPing because I was never a person that made a bunch of original characters and had a bunch of different personalities for them back when I was in school, and now kind of as an adult getting to kind of explore that, but actually living it, but also having all of these social connections. I am a lot of times more extroverted than introverted, and getting to go out and spend time with so many great people and see them and make friends, and always just having those people that you're gonna see when you get to LARP, and just seeing them light up when they see you is great too, because you're gonna go out and your characters are gonna interact, and those interactions can vary wildly. You can be best friends with someone, but your characters can hate each other, or you can go out and do something, and you're in a situation, and let's say you pick a fight with someone, and then later you're like, why did I do that? No, wait, my character did that. Why did my character do that? And it's just one of the most fun things to think about, and I love it.
Awesome. As I stated probably in the beginning of the thing, I love writing stories. I love sharing stories with people. And it sounds like from everybody else's perspective, that's more or less what brings a group of LARPers together, is the love of sharing and telling stories. Yeah. So it's a big creative outlet for a lot of people. That's really, what's the word? Welcoming and affirming for people's different creative strengths and helps people to, in a very social and safe manner, work on some of their creative weaknesses too. If you're not the best at costuming, there's people out there that would love to teach you things about costuming. If you have some struggles about characterization, there's people that will love to talk to you about characterization. If you're a bit out of shape and you want to learn how to kick somebody's butt a little bit, hey, there's people that will gladly go, let's meet up at a park sometime and just run through some drills. So yeah, it's a lot to a lot of people, and a lot of different people get a lot of different things out of these types of games. All right, so into our next section, what does a LARP look like? You have all of us telling you what we get out of it, but what does these things that we're getting, what does an event look like? I'm primarily going to be talking about weekend events, camping events, because those are the big ones that everybody tries to work towards. And then there's a lot of games that only have weekend-long events, camping trips, and stuff in which they tell a story over an extended period of days, and are thus the most complicated, most to work with. So we will be using that as our example. So what does getting ready for a game look like for players, and what does it look like for organizers? For a camping trip or a camping event, it looks like a camping trip. It just looks like, with probably a lot less need to focus on common accessibility necessities. Most game runners will try to have a public restroom of some sort. We'll try to have some sort of water on site, or basic human needs met. But for the players, it looks like what you would gather up for a camping trip, plus some props, some changes of costuming, a little bit of extra, few packs or a few extra pieces of underwear and undergarments and socks, and then maybe some black activewear to change into things for when you're trying to do a non-player character shift. Most games require you to do some sort of volunteer work during the game, so that everybody can. There's enough extra characters to play with that can drive the narrative forward. For organizers, however, it looks like, we have to get our personal things, our personal gear together, and then we have to get everything together that's for the game site. There's some lucky games that are able to store a lot of their props and stuff on site, but there's also a lot of, like our game, we don't have a permanent site, so we have to pack up all the things, get to the site half a day early, set up everything, dig a fire pit if we need to dig a fire pit, make sure that everything's located, everything that is unlocked, check the site for accessibility problems, check the site for different hazards, make sure that the weather isn't going to destroy the event, because we've had that happen a couple of times where we get to the site and some of us, me, may have been too stubborn to go, no, the site's completely usable. Drives a four-wheel drive Suburban down there and just up to the running boards, disaster. So for the game runners, it is these bits of hassle dealing with the property, dealing with the things that are outside of control, and seeing if you can bring them into control, and so you can have a safe, fun experience for everybody during the weekend. So that covers what the organizers do to get ready, and what we do when we get on site. The players, when they get on site, will check in with the organizers, get a camping spot, get a cabin, get a bedding area. Be told to set that thing up. Typically eat dinner, I've not seen any games that try to start in the morning. Everybody tries to start in the evening. So it typically goes, get your sleeping situations, get dinner, get in a costume, and then game on is post dinner. That's the common formula for pretty much every game I've ever seen. So what do you do in a game? What does a LARPing game look like? Well, you have your primary conflict and or plot. For a boffer fighter, primary conflict is going to be beating the crap out of the person next to you. So you do some warm-ups, you get into a big field or stuff like that, and you run through your first few combats. Throughout the game in a boffer fighter, you might have tournaments, you might one-on-one challenges or team battles, and try to claim some different prizes and some different awards. And a lot of those boffer fighters as well, they will also do some crafts exhibitions and some, awards for people who showed up in a really good costume or made a really cool prop, or you'll hear those referred to as art and sciences for AmpGuard. That's the big one that I can think of. And then for things like a reenactment, like an SCA, you'll be getting into character and you'll be fulfilling your role as your character. Maybe you're a blacksmith for this event and you're dressed up as a 14th century German blacksmith, and you're trying to portray that a day in the life of that type of person. Other sorts of reenactment, you might get a letter or a journal that says that is a historical person, and you're going to be living through the moment by moment of that person during a certain period of time. And then, obviously the impetus for a thing like a murder mystery narrator is lights go out, somebody's dead, find out who it is, and just go. But for the narrative games, it can be any one of those things. We can start out with an out-of-game warm-up drill. We could start with an in-game massive battle. Somebody could drop dead the first minute of the game, and it's a big mystery. Some person, we could be carrying over a plot from a previous game and trying to resolve that. In a lot of narrative-driven games, it is the ideal, the beginning of the game is the ideal time to let the veteran players catch up with each other while we take the new players off and run some things for the new players. With the assistance of a lot of the veteran players. Get their feet kind of wet as to what the weekend's gonna look like. But in a little bit more in the realm of a narrative game, we have, so conflict is going to be combat at some point. You can't stick a foam sword in somebody's hand and expect them not to swing it at something. It is a constant tick down before people get an itchy sword hand or a club or something like that, and they want to beat the heck out of something. So combat looks one of two ways typically in a narrative game. You have player versus environment, or player versus player, or character versus character, whatever you want to term it. Player versus environment is what's your what is the impetus behind most narrative games. It's what the writers have come up with, what they are wanting to push forward, the NPCs, the non-player characters that are going to come in and terrorize the player characters, and resolving with these scenarios and challenges that the writers have come up with for the players at that event. Then you have some player versus player or character versus character interactions. The big thing about character versus character stuff is a conformed consent. Nope, that's not how those words go together. Informed consent. Informed consent. Letting a person know ahead of time, hey, I want to start something with you. Hey, I'm going to start yelling at you in a few moments. Hey, are you okay to hold this scene? In a game, there are certain games that have permadeath, where your character can die permanently. letting some people know ahead of time, hey, I want to try to kill your character this event. Are you okay with that? These things are big because this is a cooperative storytelling thing. We can't control things going on in our personal lives, and sometimes the time just isn't right for a certain person. Sometimes a person's not willing to let go of a character because they're trying to work through a certain thing with that character, and they'd be really upset to lose it at that point. Sometimes a direct confrontation with a person or a character that they like, it would be a bit upsetting to them at this point. Sometimes it's just not the right event to do that at, because there's a better thing that you know is going to come along, and there's a more interesting scene that's going to happen later. Letting the person that you're going to be fighting with and letting the writing staff know so that we can accommodate the best time, the best scenes, the most dramatic moments for those things to occur. Nothing's lost in that. All the other players are going to be surprised when they see two characters going at it. The writing staff, their job is to know, and anybody that's participating in the scene, they should also know what's going on as well. And then we're left with, what are you doing outside of these big conflicts and confrontations and big battles and whatnot? Well, you have a lot of downtime. For a lot of games, there's a crafting system. You'll be crafting, making things to make the living situation of your characters better, or you'll be doing things that will set you up well for the next battle, or you'll be trying to accomplish some sort of long-term goal. You could also be, instead of crafting, the basic human needs. Sitting down, eating lunch, staying hydrated, escaping from the heat. A lot of games will stop play in the middle of exceptionally hot periods of the year. We live in Missouri. We have had several games where we go, we're not having plot from noon to 3, because noon to 3 is a lethal time to be out fighting each other. It will be it'd be a bit too intense for us. Working on things like characterization is also probably the biggest chunk of what you could be doing during your downtime. And by characterization, I mean not just exhibiting your personality quirks, but expressing personality or traits. You always react really negatively when you see a zombie. You always act in a moment of panic. Sorry, I didn't see that message. All right. If you could message me that in a different messaging service other than Zoom.
You're fine. This is just for questions later.
Okay, got it. Your character always reacts as a panic around zombies. Why do they do that? What happened to them? Talking with another character, establishing some sort of past, establishing not just the singular quirk, but a traumatic incident that has happened that informs his character's behaviors. That's what really makes these characters believable. That's what gives you the immersion to be invested in these characters if something terrible should happen to them, if something dramatic should occur. But you want your other players to be invested in you. One of the biggest problems you could, one of the biggest faux pas you could commit, not faux pas, mistakes you can make going into LARP is making a character that is a lone wolf. LARPs are social games. They should you should go in there with a character that's intent on interacting with other characters. You should build a personality that's centered and focused around interacting with other characters. If it's being a jerk, then it's being a jerk. If it's being, super pumped about combat, then maybe it's about training the people around you to also be competent in combat and to be efficient fighters. If it's being a coward and avoiding everything, then maybe you should focus on how you keep the people that you care about safe and how you should keep them out of conflict as well. These are the big personality things. Like everything should be focused on when you're writing the character. Not everything, but most things should be focused on how you're interacting with other people, how you're continuing to tell not only your own story, but part of their story as well. And then that's more or less what happens in a game. You get through all this, you have some big dramatic moments. Maybe somebody dies. You shed some tears. I have seen games in which I joined a post-apocalyptic game, and the first session I saw, the first night was somebody permanently died, and somebody was over that person's body crying real, genuine tears because that character that's been around for 3, 4, 5 years that you've interacted with so many times, they're gone. They're gone forever. And that's, heartbreaking and awful and, well, not awful, heartbreaking, but awful in the sense of you're watching like a sad movie. It's evocative drama. It's evocative storytelling. The people are invested in what's going on at that point in time. So you have all these moments, and then you need to transition to out of game, rejoin the real world as it is. A lot of times, people will love to go out and cram their faces full of the worst possible foods ever because you've been out in the woods running for 2.5 days and you just need the most amount of calories as possible. So a lot of people will go out to a restaurant and sit around and talk about what happened. A lot of times there's a roundtable discussion on site. A lot of games will require you to help clean up the site as well to get it, looking at the way it was before every game, or looking better than when you guys came in. And yeah, it's.
I do want to second that. Fried chicken and mashed potatoes has never tasted so good until after you've been sweating and fighting all weekend, and then you go to this KFC and you just shove fried chicken in your face, and it's the best thing that you've ever had.
Mm-hmm. For those of you guys that are watching, think about whenever you go to a convention and you've been at a convention for 2 or 3 days, just living it up as much as you can, and then you have to come back to the real world. It's difficult. It's a challenge, and it's the same kind of feeling that us LARPers get whenever we've been out just in our own world for the weekend and then come back.
There's less con crud, though.
But there is more potential for heat exhaustion. Running around in the sun, literally running for hours and hours on end, in things that are particularly heavy. Like, I don't know if you ever tried to run around in chainmail before. This is like 40 pounds. It's not light, and it's not easy. And you learn very quickly why people didn't put on armor until the point of battle, because no, you'll exhaust yourself. If you try to
Best exercise ever.
Very good for conditioning. Yeah. So the last thing that I really have to talk about before we discuss things like props and costumes and equipment and potentially take a few questions is, what do we do in the downtime between games? I know as organizers, we start to write. We get new props, we make new props. We get the basics outline of the next game. We continue the story. We take a lot of the feedback that people have given us over the at the end of the last game, and then we try to make it and tweak it and rewrite it. And also, we work on rules. A lot of games will, especially like for us, we are our own company, so we wrote our own rule set. So, and there's certain times of the year where in between games we will be writing new rule sets and writing revisions to those. getting those approved. Also doing things like business stuff, like getting insurance and all that good stuff. Fun times. We for the players though, there will be typically some sort of social media interaction, posting little bits, tidbits, and stories from your character or from your character's point of view. Little post-game things, things that they would do in their day-to-day life, or things they're trying to accomplish off screen. There are social events. Our game in particular hosts a social event every month. It's free. People come and just hang out, talk about the new rules things, talk about some workshop things, and just hang out and get to know each other and talk a little bit while we're not, in the middle of the woods. And yeah, and also during this time, players will also be working on their own costumes or their own little personal props and kit to show off for the next game. So that's it for what does a game look like. I think that's generally the gist of what we've all been, what all our experiences are. There's a lot more minutia that we go into, but is there anything that I missed that you guys wanted to cover?
Not anything specific, but I'm sure that a lot of the people viewing want to see the things that we use to hit each other with. We do have some questions from the people that are viewing, so we're going to get to those questions in just a moment. We want to do a little bit of show and tell to show you guys what we use.
All right. Well, I've got all my stuff laid out here, so I'll just go through the room that I'm in real quick. I have a couple of suits of chainmail. We try to use reels as close as we can, simulation of armor. So the metal armor has to be metal. The leather armor has to be leather. The cloth armor, as we have here, has to be nice and thick and padded, and actually could conceivably stop things like a cut. We have, man, there's a lot of repurposed things here. This used to be a wool blanket, now turned into a nice, large wool cloak. Got several tunics. Wool is a wonderful, wonderful substance. Keeps you nice and dry. But yeah, lots of little bits and bobs because I've been doing this for a while. But the big thing that people want to see typically are the weapons. For us, we have an affinity for a certain seller. We like Epic Armory. They look nice. They are relatively inexpensive, still kind of pricey. But they are they're the safest while looking the best. They come between those two worlds. We have our loaners, which we got off Amazon for dirt cheap. Sword-like objects. They swing at people. They're safe. And then what most people like to do for this is just a basic shillelagh. It's not the prettiest thing in the universe anymore because it's actually one of the other GMs. He's not on the call right now, but it started to split in cases. But this is a homemade weapon constructed, just basic little shillelagh. Then we have all of our shields, loaners, and big props and fun stuff that I use personally. But yeah, whenever we're certain games, we'll try to use if you're striking. So on the shield example, there are certain games that will allow things like metal faces on their shield, but have to have a thick padding around the rim of it. And it has to be, those are typically also lightest touch games, where you don't try to exhibit a whole lot of swordsmanship or anything like that. It's all about the very, very lightest touches that you can deliver on a person and you also keep those shields planted to your chest. Our game is a little bit more active, so we like to have a safer construction of the shields. They're all foam, so that if somebody accidentally like runs into one or some shield gets pushed up into a person's face, it's not going to hurt them. And then we therefore have the ability to be a little bit more active in our gameplay. We swing a little bit harder. We use our shields a little bit more. There's also games like boffer games like Dagger here, which their props don't look the prettiest. They look big and foam and safe and comfy. But that's because they're swinging very hard. There are games where I've been to where, like, if you don't think somebody's taking their hits, you push them into the ground with your spear, because they can't argue that they didn't feel that if they're on the ground. That's going to be fun for some people. It's going to be very not fun for others. So that's really up to your preference of game, what type of props you'll be using, how, and to what intensity. Who else wants to show off some of their fun stuffs?
I do.
Yeah, for us.
Well, as you may have seen on my head earlier, I have this lovely foam wooden mug. It is all foam, it's squishy, and because there's no cores in it or anything, since it's just foam, in our game, I would actually be able to throw this at someone. Or actually, physically hit them with it. One of our other helpers here, Matt Rink, actually made this lovely, lovely foam anvil. This is nothing but upholstery foam and plastidip, and it's completely collapsible and squishy, and you can twist it and it's not gonna break. But again, because this is coreless, there's no hard spots in it, I can huck it at somebody.
And since she plays a dwarf, she does that a lot.
Anvils. There's my shield here. It is also all foam. This is an old Epic Armory shield. I think they actually still sell this model.
They do.
Had it for a very long time, and it's a center grip shield, which is my personal preference. And then I do just want to show off my pride and joy here, which is my hammer.
This is an example of really high quality homemade props. This was made by a carpenter friend of ours that really put a lot of time and effort into the construction of this.
Yep, and it's got dwarven runes carved into it, and it's beautiful and has lasted me for several years now.
Matt, Kay, do you have anything you want to share?
With everybody being so crafty and such, and taking the time to build up their armor or their weapons, or just side stuff that they want to build for their character, if you take a little time, don't ever rush it. Just buy little things here and there. Have a goal in mind, and start being able to like build new armor. Like this is plate on the inside and leather on the outside, and then take the time to learn a new craft like tooling leather. If you have a painting or a staining background, learn how to mix the two and color it your own way. There's all kinds of things you can learn from like YouTube, or find somebody who's a master at like tooling leather, or working with making things, putting them together. Just take the time to learn it. There are so many people out there that can teach you these things, and don't ever rush it. Learn what you can when you can, buy materials when you can. Don't ever force it. Just take your time and build your character up. There's no rush. You got all the time in the world, and if you do it right, you learn things. You can take that knowledge and pass it on to somebody else, and they're learning things. They can teach you things too. You know, they can spark an idea, just enrich your life. You know, just through crafting and every little bit here and there. You know.
Matt, I just want to add on to that. Do not expect to have all of your LARPing stuff in the very beginning. Everything that I have that I carry with me to and from LARP, I've gathered over the course of 5 years. When I first started, and a tunic that was on loan to me from somebody else, and I borrowed weapons, and just over that course of time, you know, I commissioned other people to make stuff. I started to learn how to, I don't know how to sew at all. I don't have a sewing machine. And I'm still learning how to hand sew. And you can trade crafts with your friends. But yeah, just my main thing is don't expect to have everything all at once. Collect things as you go along, add little baubles to your costume to just kind of make it intricate and interesting.
And I was going to add to that. As well. I've got one of my bracers right here. But the funny thing about this is it's an old set of boots. They were like knee-high boots that had like all the different leather patterns on them, and we repurposed them. So one thing, you know, that I saw in the question log was like some tips for people who are like new to this or on a tighter budget. And the first thing is look and see what you've already got that could be repurposed into something. Second is go to thrift stores and look for things that are, you know, linen or, you know, good quality fabrics. You know, I know that me personally, I have like one skirt that really, really works, and I use it for several characters because it's a good base. So if you repurpose things and use them, you know, for multiple ways, that's helpful. So like April said, you don't have to have everything right away, you know, build on it, but sometimes it's fun to go to the thrift store and go shopping for your character. You know, sometimes you go shopping for yourself, sometimes you go shopping for a character and see what you can find. And, you know, but don't be afraid to turn something mundane into something extraordinary. So.
I mean, on that note as well, I have the most used tunic that I have in my arsenal is an old black bed sheet, and it worked just fine, especially as a base layer to just build off of and add little tiny pieces of accessory and whatnot that I found over the years. As far as budget though, the weapons can get pricey, but especially for our game and for a lot of games, there's loaners available for that very reason. For people who are new and want to see if they're interested in it. As far as costume goes, I am 100% confident in all the people here on this call. You can come up to us with any number on any budget, and we can get you costuming. It just sometimes it takes the amount of effort versus cost is just inversely proportionate. So if you've got the time and you want to put some elbow grease into it, we can make you a fine costume off of $5-10, and you'll be happy with it, and people will be impressed with it. I guarantee you.
It's true. And one of the questions we had was over what's allowed in the costuming. For our particular game, every game is a little bit different. Our game tends to be in the medieval fantasy, but we have characters who are from all kinds of different timelines and worlds because of the story that we've built. We have a character that is that's an android. Cyborg, I apologize. And they deal with a lot more technology than most of the other characters. The question was specifically around zippers. It's great if you can do it without zippers, but we're not going to shame you if you have a zipper on your shirt or your jacket or something like that. We will help you find more period things to fit your character, but it doesn't have to be, especially at first. When I first started, I didn't have any garb. I threw on an old t-shirt that didn't have a pattern on it, and picked up a pair of scrubs that were just plain, and went out there in just real plain clothing. And just over the last year, I have picked up pieces, like everybody else was saying, and just added on to that to build my character. A few months ago, I paid a seamstress to make a cloak for me, because I was like, this is the one piece I really want to accent my character. All of that will come with time, and we build those connections and that family to try to have that access and to take care of one another. But yeah, let's look at a couple more of the questions. We talked about price. We've talked about a little bit of the costuming.
Should we talk about the prices of games?
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about that real quick.
For our game, we have day event.
Guys, I hate to chime in here real quick, but we are running a little short on time.
Okay.
Ooh. So the only reason, I'm sorry, let me.
All right. So just to answer that last little question real quick, our pricing, day events typically cost about $5 to $10. Weekend events cost about $30 to $35. There's other games in other parts of the world that can cost upwards of 50, 60, 70. And then there's other games that are big, super massive games that are 2,000 or 3,000 people, which the tickets can cost event ticket prices $100 to $500 to $1,000 for one that's in a remote part of Canada that's like a week and a half long, and you get all of your private boarding and everything like that all included. So we are on the lower end of things, but you can pay what you want to pay for the immersive experience that you want to get. And then just to wrap things up, because we are running short on time, is we are located on Facebook, Citizens of Meadowmere and Meadowmere Larp on Facebook. And then Jeff, what's the website for us?
Yeah, the website is meadowmerelarp.com. We have Visioncon has shared all of our links in the chat. Please feel free to go jump on, take a look at the website. You can find all kinds of character stories. And we know that there were a few more questions that we didn't get to. Feel free to message us, join our Facebook group, the Citizens of Meadowmere, and we will be more than happy to talk to you in depth about all of your questions and your interest in LARP.
Great. I think that'll do it for us today.